Margaret, 67, quit sugar for 2 years. Sugar-free cookies, diabetic shakes, zero sugar snacks. Her A1C still climbed from 6.1 to 6.8. She became type 2 diabetic doing everything right. The culprit? A hidden ingredient in sugar-free foods that's destroying your body after 60. And it's not sugar. In this video, 8 things you must know. What it is, why it beats glucose, the chemicals they hide in it, what it does to your brain and liver, how it wrecks your medications, which senior foods contain it, the marketing trick, keeping you trapped, and how to eliminate it today. So let's get right into it. Number 1. What is this ingredient and why is it invisible? It is a starch, but not just any starch. Not the potatoes your grandmother used to make from scratch. We're talking about industrial starch, modified food starch, corn starch, maltodextrin. These are the names you'll find buried in the ingredient list, hiding in plain sight, while the front of the package proudly says sugar-free. It's a carbohydrate, but because of a legal technicality, it's not classified as a sugar. So food companies are allowed to print 0 sugars on the label, even though this ingredient behaves worse than sugar once it enters your bloodstream. An average person consumes between 65 and 250 pounds of this stuff every single year. It only costs about 20 cents per pound because it's heavily subsidized, meaning your taxpayer dollars are helping food companies put this in your food at a fraction of the real cost. You're literally funding the ingredient that's wrecking your health. And here's what makes this uniquely devastating for anyone past 60. Your pancreas is producing less insulin than it did 20 years ago. Your cells are becoming more resistant to whatever insulin you do produce. Your liver processes toxins at a fraction of the speed it once did. And your gut lining, which acts as a barrier between what you eat and your bloodstream, is thinner and more permeable than it was at 40. So when the starch floods your system, it hits you harder and deeper than it would hit a younger person. Your body simply cannot buffer the impact the way it once could. And that explains exactly what happened to Margaret. Now, if you look at a nutritional facts label on one of these sugar-free products, you might see something like this: 16 grams of total carbohydrates, 1 gram of fiber, and 0 grams of sugar. Do the math. What's left? 15 grams of a carbohydrate that is not listed anywhere on that panel. And that is exactly why starch is invisible. You don't see it unless you flip the package over, read the ingredient list, and recognize the technical names. But understanding that it exists is only half the battle. What really matters is what happens once it hits your bloodstream. And that brings us to number 2. Number 2, why does it spike your blood sugar more than pure glucose? Let me make this super simple so you don't need a chemistry degree. Think of a starch like a long chain. On that chain, you've got sugar molecules linked together like beads on a necklace. When that chain exists in a whole food, like a real potato from the garden, the bonds between the beads are strong. Your body has to work to break them down slowly, gradually, which means a controlled release of sugar into your blood. But when they take that starch into a laboratory and modify it, and by modify I mean they mechanically grind it into the finest powder, strip away every bit of fiber and nutrition, add chemicals, bleach it, those bonds become incredibly weak and fragile. So when you eat it, it shatters almost instantly in your digestive system. Faster than sugar, faster than glucose. Here are the actual numbers. Table sugar has a glycemic index of 65. Glucose sits at 100, the benchmark. But maltodextrin, one of these industrial starches, scores between 106 and 136 on the glycemic index. Higher than pure glucose itself. And yet it's legally classified as not a sugar. That is the loophole that destroyed Margaret's health. Now, for anyone over 60 whose insulin response is already compromised, this is like pouring a flood into a system that can barely handle a trickle. Your pancreas is producing less insulin than it did at 40. Your cells are becoming more resistant to whatever insulin you do produce. Your gut lining is thinner and more permeable. and your metabolism now preferentially stores excess carbohydrates as visceral fat, the dangerous kind that wraps around your liver, your kidneys, your heart. So this ingredient hits you harder, faster, and deeper than it hits a younger person. Your body simply cannot process it the way it once did, and that's only the biochemistry. Wait until you hear what synthetic chemicals they put into this powder during manufacturing, because that's a whole different level of alarming. Number 3, the toxic chemicals hiding in the manufacturing process. One chemical they use is called sodium tripolyphosphate. This has been linked to kidney stress and vascular calcification. For anyone over 60 already concerned about kidney function or arterial hardening, this should genuinely worry you. Here's another one, vinyl acetate. This is considered a possible human carcinogen. Then there's sodium hypochlorite. That's bleach. They regulate bleach in your drinking water as a known risk, but they don't regulate it in your food starch. And then they add emulsifiers that may disrupt mitochondrial function. Your mitochondria are the energy factories inside every cell. After 60, your mitochondrial output is already declining naturally. The last thing you need is a food additive, accelerating that decline. All of those chemicals are self-regulated under something called GRAS, generally recognized as safe. The question is, how can it be safe if it was never tested for long-term effects in aging adults? There are 0 long-term studies on how these compounds interact with a 65-year-old's declining kidneys. 0 studies on how they affect a 70-year-old's thinning gut lining. None. And we wonder why chronic disease after 60 keeps climbing year after year. Now, if you're finding this valuable, take 1 second and hit that subscribe button. I put out content like this every week specifically for people over 60 who refuse to accept that declining health is inevitable. And trust me, what I'm about to cover in number 4 is something your doctor has probably never explained to you. Number 4. What industrial starch does to your brain, your liver, and your arteries after 60. When this starch breaks down in your body, it produces something called an aldehyde. I don't know if you've ever heard about this compound, but this is what they use to embalm people, to preserve dead bodies. And another byproduct is the exact same toxin that causes that miserable feeling after a night of drinking, the hangover. That's what this starch generates inside your body every time you consume it. For someone over 60, your liver is slower at clearing these toxins. They accumulate, they lodge into your cell membranes, they damage the receptors on the outside of your cells, including the insulin receptors. This is one of the deeper root causes of why insulin resistance accelerates with age. It's not simply getting older, it's what you're unknowingly eating that's speeding up the process. But there's a layer here most people never connect to their diet. These aldehydes and the constant glucose floods create what scientists call glycation, excess glucose binding to proteins and forming sticky, damaged molecules. Think of it like caramelizing onions in a pan. That browning reaction, a version of that is happening inside your body every time industrial starch dumps glucose into your system. In your brain, this drives the plaquing associated with Alzheimer's disease. Some researchers now call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes because of how tightly it's linked to chronic blood sugar dysfunction. In your liver, glycation triggers fibrosis, scar tissue, gradually replacing healthy cells, quietly eroding organ function over months and years. And in your blood vessels, it stiffens the arterial walls, reducing elasticity, which is why so many people over 60 develop high blood pressure that seems to appear out of nowhere despite eating clean. 3 different organs, 3 devastating consequences, all trace back to one invisible ingredient. And now, here's the part I teased at the beginning. The one that could genuinely change the way you think about your prescriptions. Number 5. How industrial starch is sabotaging your medications. If you're over 60, chances are you're on at least one medication, maybe metformin for blood sugar, a statin for cholesterol, a blood pressure pill. These medications are calibrated assuming a certain dietary baseline. But when you're unknowingly flooding your system with industrial starch 3 or 4 times a day, you're working against your own prescriptions. Your metformin is fighting to lower blood sugar, while the maltodextrin in your healthy breakfast bar is spiking it right back up. Your statin is managing cholesterol, while the aldehydes from starch are generating the exact type of oxidized LDL particles that cause arterial plaque. It's like pressing the gas pedal and the brake at the same time and wondering why nothing is improving. And if that connection alone doesn't make you rethink your pantry, wait until you see the specific products I'm about to list, because some of these are sitting in your kitchen right now. Number 6. The exact healthy foods that are loaded with this ingredient. Very few people eat industrial starch by itself. It's almost always combined with seed oils, and when you combine starch with seed oil under heat, you create a compounded toxic effect that is devastating on aging tissues that have already lost much of their capacity to repair. The starch floods your blood with glucose. The heated seed oil generates its own set of aldehydes, and together they create a cascade of oxidative damage that no single medication can outrun. This combination is in virtually every ultra-processed product on the shelf, and it's the backbone of most foods marketed as convenient, affordable, and healthy for older adults. Let's look at what many seniors are actually eating. Sugar-free cookies, 65% starch, 25% seed oils. The diabetic-friendly nutrition shake. Modified cornstarch is often the second or third ingredient. Those heart-healthy crackers, 70% starch, 20% seed oils. Gluten-free bread, packed with modified starches to replace the gluten. Meal replacement bars marketed to older adults. Flip them over. Modified food starch, right there. Some people will say, I don't eat cornstarch, but then their pantry holds sugar-free pudding mix, instant oatmeal packets, and snack bars, every single one containing modified cornstarch or maltodextrin. They just don't know because they never read past the front of the package. Others say, but mine is organic. I understand that thinking, but organic industrial starch triggers the identical blood sugar spike as non-organic. The organic label doesn't neutralize the glycemic impact. It just means the corn was grown without synthetic pesticides before they ground it into the same refined powder and processed it with the same chemicals. And remember, I'm not attacking the potato you'd grow in your garden or the natural starches in vegetables. A whole sweet potato has fiber, potassium, vitamin A, and a cellular structure that forces your body to digest it gradually. There's a world of difference between cooking that from scratch and tearing open a packet of instant mashed and just adding water. One is food, the other is an industrial product wearing a food costume. Now, you might be wondering how they get away with all this. That brings us to number 7. Number 7, the marketing trick the food industry is using to keep you buying. The food industry knows that adults over 60 are the fastest growing demographic purchasing health-conscious products. They know you're reading labels. They know you're scanning for zero sugar. So they engineered the perfect workaround. Strip out the sugar you've learned to recognize and replace it with industrial starch, which you haven't. They print words like smart choice and doctor recommended and balanced nutrition on the front. Meanwhile, the third or fourth ingredient is the very substance driving your blood sugar through the roof. This isn't accidental, it's a calculated strategy, and it's costing you your health. So if we look at the definition of food, that which is eaten to sustain life, promote the growth and repair of tissues, does industrial starch fit that definition? Absolutely not. It doesn't nourish, it doesn't repair, it actively damages. But it's still legally labeled as food because of regulatory loopholes that have nothing to do with your biology. Now, I promised you an action plan, so here it is. Number 8, your practical plan to eliminate this starting today. First, read ingredient lists, not nutrition panels. The front label will say 0 sugar and you'll think you're safe. The ingredient list is where the truth lives. Look for these terms: modified food starch, modified cornstarch, maltodextrin, wheat starch, tapioca starch in its modified form. If any of those appear in the first 5 ingredients, put it back on the shelf. Second, replace processed, sugar-free snacks with real whole foods. A handful of nuts, a piece of cheese, celery with almond butter, a boiled egg. These are genuinely free of both sugar and industrial starch. Your blood sugar will stabilize. Third, be deeply skeptical of anything marketed specifically to diabetics or seniors. These products are some of the worst offenders because they strip the sugar and load up on industrial starch, which is arguably more damaging. Fourth, if you're on medications and your numbers haven't budged despite doing everything right, bring this information to your doctor. Show them the ingredient lists of what you eat daily. Ask whether industrial starch could be counteracted your prescriptions. Fifth, pay attention to more than just your blood sugar. After eliminating these starches, many people report their joint stiffness decreasing, brain fog lifting, sleep quality improving, and digestion normalizing within just a few weeks. This isn't only a blood sugar issue, it's an inflammation issue, a gut issue, a cellular issue. When you remove the source, your body finally gets the space to heal. Sixth, next time you're at the grocery store, take your reading glasses and spend 10 extra minutes in the aisle. Pick up the 5 products you buy most often and read the ingredient list on each one. I guarantee at least 2 or 3 of them will contain modified food starch, maltodextrin, or cornstarch. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that awareness alone will change the way you shop forever. Find a replacement for each one. Something with ingredients you can actually pronounce and recognize as real food. Now, I gave industrial starch a serious black eye today, and it deserves every bit of it. But the next most critical thing you need to understand is how seed oils are compounding this damage inside your body after 60. Because when these 2 ingredients combine, the destruction doesn't just add up, it multiplies. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button right now so you don't miss that video when it drops. I break down exactly how seed oils lodge into your cell membranes, which ones to avoid, and what to replace them with. I put that video right here. Check it out now.